The learning objectives of today's topic are that at the end of the lecture, the student should be able to recognize the bone. The student should be able to identify that the bone belongs to which side, whether right side or left side. The student should be able to know the different landmarks of the bone, like the borders, surfaces, and the other landmarks which are used for side determination, bone determination. Scapula is also called as shoulder blade. This is a large, flat, triangular bone which is placed on the posterolateral aspect of the thoracic cage. It is overlying the second to the seventh rib. The scapula forms the posterior part of the shoulder or the pectoral girdle. So this bone, which is present on the posterolateral aspect of the thoracic cage, it is triangular and a flat bone called as scapula, extending from second rib up to the seventh rib. You can clearly see in the figure that it is a triangular bone which is present on the posterior aspect of the thoracic cage. Actually, not exactly posterior, but the proper word is posterolateral to the thoracic cage. These are the spines of the vertebrae. This is the vertebral column. This is the posterior view of the thoracic cage, and you can see a triangular bone present on the posterolateral aspect of the thoracic cage, which is called as scapula, also called as shoulder blade. Now, this is an anterior view of the human skeleton. This is a thoracic cage which is formed by different bones, sternum, ribs, and on the posterolateral part of the thoracic cage, you can find a triangular bone. This triangular bone is called as scapula. It is present on the posterolateral aspect of the thoracic cage, extending from second rib up to the seventh rib. This image is the posterior view of the skeleton of the thoracic region, which is showing the scapula present on the posterolateral aspect of the thoracic cage. Different views are shown so that you can understand the exact location of the scapula. Now, we will discuss the features of the bone, the important landmarks which are present in the scapula. The scapula has three angles. The end points, they are called as angle. So this is lateral angle, superior angle, and inferiorly there is inferior angle. It has how many angles? Three angles. Lateral angle, superior angle, inferior angle. The scapula, as we said, it is triangular, so it has three borders. A superior border, a lateral border, and a medial border. It has two surfaces, anterior surface and a posterior surface. It has three processes: coracoid process, a thumb-like projection just above the lateral angle is called as coracoid process. Another process is present which is called as acromion process. So you can see this is acromion process. Acromion process is extending from a spine which is called as spinous process, which can be seen in the posterior view of the scapula. So first we are going to discuss the angles. As I said, it has three angles: superior angle, inferior angle, and a lateral angle. The superior angle is positioned medially and is on the superior aspect, on the upper part of the scapula. The inferior angle is positioned inferiorly in the human body. The lateral angle faces laterally and it is broad. It bears a shallow cavity which is called as glenoid cavity of the scapula. This glenoid cavity of the scapula articulates with the head of the humerus to form the glenohumeral joint, which is also called as the shoulder joint. So, the shoulder joint is formed between the humerus and the scapula. The glenohumeral joint, also called as the shoulder joint, is formed between the glenoid cavity of the scapula and the head of the humerus. So you have to remember that scapula has three angles: superior angle, inferior angle, and a lateral angle. The lateral angle bears a cavity which is called as glenoid cavity, which articulates with the head of the humerus to form glenohumeral joint. Just above the glenoid cavity, there is a triangular tubercle which is called as supraglenoid tubercle. Now what tubercle is? Tubercle is an elevation, a triangular elevation present on the bone. So just above the glenoid cavity, there is a tubercle which is called as supraglenoid tubercle. Similarly, below the glenoid cavity, there is an infraglenoid tubercle. Both these tubercles give attachment to the muscles of the upper limb. In this figure, you can clearly see the three angles. This is a posterior view of the scapula. This is superior angle, which is towards the medial side, inferior angle, and a lateral angle. The lateral angle, also called as acromial angle. The lateral angle bears a cavity which is called as glenoid cavity. It articulates with the head of the humerus to form the joint. Just below the glenoid cavity, you can clearly see a tubercle, a small elevation called as infraglenoid tubercle. Anterior view of the scapula, again showing the three angles: superior angle, lateral angle, and the inferior angle. The lateral angle clearly demarcates the glenoid cavity of the scapula as well as the supraglenoid and the infraglenoid tubercles. Now in this figure, you can see the joint form, both the views, anterior view as well as the posterior view of the joint formed between the scapula and the humerus. So this is shoulder joint which is formed between the glenoid cavity and the head of the humerus. The glenoid cavity is quite shallow while the head of humerus is large. The scapula has three borders. It has a superior border, a medial border, and a lateral border. When you look the superior border, it is thin and it is short. On the lateral side of the superior border, there is presence of a notch which is called as suprascapular notch. It can be clearly seen in the image. On the lateral side of the superior border, there is a notch which is called as suprascapular notch, just near to the coracoid process of the scapula. The lateral border is the thickest border and it runs from the infraglenoid tubercle till the inferior angle. So this is the lateral border which is running from the glenoid cavity up to the inferior angle, and it has an elevation which was discussed previously called as infraglenoid tubercle. The medial border is thin and it runs from the superior angle up to the inferior angle. This medial border is near to the vertebral column, hence it is also called as vertebral border. This is the anterior view of the scapula, in which you can see clearly the three borders and the three angles. We are revising the features of scapula on this image. We said that scapula is a triangular bone. It has three angles: superior angle, inferior angle, and a lateral angle. The lateral angle rears the glenoid cavity, which articulates with the head of humerus to form glenohumeral joint, also called as shoulder joint. The lateral angle bears two tubercles, a supraglenoid tubercle and an infraglenoid tubercle. It has three borders: superior border, which is thin and which is short. It bears a notch called as suprascapular notch. Now, through this notch, the suprascapular nerve and the vessels pass, which we are going to learn in the next lectures. It has a medial border which is thin, running from the superior angle up to the inferior angle. It is near the vertebral column, so it is also called as the vertebral border. The third border is the lateral border, and it is the thickest border, extending from the glenoid cavity up to the inferior angle. Now, the scapula has two surfaces. It has an anterior surface and a posterior surface. The anterior surface is towards the rib cage, so it is also called as costal surface. It is towards the rib cage, so it is called as costal surface. Now, on this surface, a muscle is attached which is called as subscapularis. So, its name is also given as subscapular fossa. So, its name is also given as subscapular fossa. I am repeating that it has scapula has two surfaces. Anterior surface faces the rib cage, so it is called as costal surface. Subscapularis muscle is attached on it, hence it is also called as subscapular fossa. Now this surface is concave and is directed medially and forward. When you look carefully, it is marked by three longitudinal ridges from where the subscapular muscle arises. The posterior surface is also called as the dorsal surface. Now when you look at the dorsal surface, It gives rise to the spine of the scapula. Remember, I said that scapula has three processes: coracoid process, acromion process, and a spinous process. Good. So the dorsal surface has a process which is called as spinous process. This spinous process divides the dorsal surface into a smaller supraspinous fossa and a larger infraspinous fossa. The infraspinous fossa is large and it has longitudinal ridges. These two fossas are connected on the lateral side by a notch which is called as spinoglenoid notch. This notch is present lateral to the root of the spine. Root means the attachment point of the spine. So you can look into the figure. This is the spinous process. It is labeled over here. This is the spinous process of the scapula. Okay. Now you can see it's written over here. The notch connecting the supraspinous and the infraspinous fossa. This notch is lateral to the root of the spine and it is also called as spinoglenoid notch. Spine and glenoid cavity, it is present between the spine and the glenoid cavity, so it is also called as spinoglenoid notch. So we said till now we have learned the angles, we have learned the borders, and we have learned the two surfaces. Now it's the time to learn the processes. So the scapula has how many processes? It has three processes: spinous process, coracoid process, acromion process. The first process that we will discuss right now is the spinous process. It divides the dorsal surface into a supraspinous and infraspinous fossa. The spinous process, when it extends laterally, it continues as acromion process. The spinous process has a tubercle which is called as deltoid tubercle. You can see I am moving the cursor on the spinous process. Here is a tubercle which is called as deltoid tubercle. The posterior border of the spinous process is thick and is called as crust of spine. The crust of spine has an upper lip, upper margin, and a lower lip called as lower margin. Different muscles are attached on these lips. Now it is very difficult. I'm sure it's difficult. I know it is difficult to understand bone only on the presentations. I know you need bones in your hand. But still try to understand, try to look different images from the atlas. It will make you easy to understand the bones. I'm saying that this is a plate of bone having two lips, upper lip and a lower lip, which give attachment to different muscles. The second process which is present in the scapula is called as the acromion process. The second process is called as the acromion process. Now this acromion process is actually the anterolateral projection of the spine. It is the anterolateral projection of the spine. It arches over the shoulder joint. It is just present above the shoulder joint. You can see in the figure, it is present just above the shoulder joint. It articulates with the clavicle, which is a bone which you are going to study. It articulates with the clavicle through a small oval facet on its distal end to form acromioclavicular joint. So you can look into the figure. The acromion process, which is the extension of the spinous process, it is present just above the shoulder joint and it is articulating with the clavicle to form the acromioclavicular joint. The third process is called as the coracoid process. The coracoid process, when you look at carefully, it resembles a thumb-like projection. It is like a bent thumb. It is like a hook, or you can say it is like a crow's beak. Coracoid, the word coracoid means, cora means crow's beak. So coracoid process appears thumb-like or a hook-like projection. It is directed forwards and slightly laterally. It is directed forward and slightly laterally. So the three processes which are present in the scapula are spinous process, acromion process, forming a joint called as acromioclavicular joint, and a thumb-like, hook-like anterior projection which is called as coracoid process. In this figure, you can clearly see the three processes: acromion process, coracoid process, and on the posterior view, the spinous process can be clearly seen. Now, how you will determine the side that this scapula belongs to the right side or belongs to the left side? You should know few features. You should memorize some features. The first important feature is that this triangular bone, you remember, it has 3 angles, 3 processes, 3 borders and 2 surfaces. So the lateral angle is large and it bears the clinoid cavity. It should be faced laterally. The costal surface is concave and it has to be faced anteriorly. The coracoid process lie anteriorly while the spinous process lies posteriorly. So when you will remember these few points, you can easily determine that the scapula belongs to which side, whether it is of right side or of the left side. The scapula ossifices from one primary center which appears near the glenoid cavity during the 8th week of development. It has 7 secondary centers of ossification. Clinical conditions. There is a condition which is called as scaphoid scapula, in which it is a developmental anomaly in which the medial border of the scapula below the level of spine presents a concavity instead of the normal convexity. So normally the medial border is convex, but in the scaphoid scapula it becomes concave. The medial border below the level of spine presents concavity. Such type of scapula is called as scaphoid scapula. Another clinical condition is called as winging of scapula, in which the medial border of the scapula protrudes away from the thorax. So look over here. This is the winged scapula. The medial border of the scapula can be seen clearly prominent. The protrusion of the medial border is posterior and lateral as the scapula rotates out. Now, this swinging of scapula is caused by paralysis of a nerve which is called as long thoracic nerve. You're going to learn it later, but till now you should remember one line that swinging of scapula is caused because of paralysis of the long thoracic nerve. Thank you so much, dear students.